What I feel is that we should normalize talking about death.
Palliative care, as some of us may know, is a specialized field of medicine that focuses on providing care for individuals who are suffering from serious, life-threatening, and life-limiting illnesses.
Whenever a patient is diagnosed with a serious illness like cancer, their entire world goes upside down.
In this session, our intention is for Dr. Khurana to share her insights and expert opinion on palliative care and specifically on advanced care planning.
It's an upcoming concept in palliative care where we encourage young people to talk about death.
We have a cyclical view of life in terms of dharma, karma, rebirth.
Yeah.
But here you're saying that there is this taboo that आप मृत्यु की बात नहीं करते हो.
Research from the Western countries tells us that they do it on day zero itself, like when the diagnosis is broken. They go the extra mile and talk about such things, about the trajectory of the disease. But in India, especially in our context, we do not initiate at the time of diagnosis.
Welcome to the 14th episode of Savikalp Sanchar, our monthly conversation series on everything health and wellness. We are honored to have in our midst today Dr. Ruparna Khurana. Thank you, Dr. Khurana, for being here.
Thank you, Raghav. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you, Savikalpa Sciences.
Thank you. Dr. Khurana is an associate consultant in the Department of Palliative Medicine at Sir Gangaram Hospital in New Delhi. Palliative care, as some of us may know, is a specialized field of medicine that focuses on providing care for individuals who are suffering from serious, life-threatening, and life-limiting illnesses. And the primary goal of palliative care is to enhance the quality of life of both the patients and their caregivers, their families, as they navigate these complex health challenges. In this session, our intention is for Dr. Khurana to share her insights and expert opinion on palliative care and specifically on advanced care planning, which is a concept which we hope that you are able to shed greater light on, an aspect that ensures that care aligns with and speaks to an individual as well as their family's goals, values, preferences, and even in instances when, for example, patients are unable to speak for themselves. So thank you again, Dr. Khurana, and with your permission, let's dive right into our first question. Within the context of palliative care, can you briefly explain to us what is advanced care planning and why is it critical in the palliative ecosystem?
Okay, thank you so much, Raghav, and the entire team for inviting me. And we are discussing a very pertinent topic, especially in the context of palliative care, serious illnesses like cancer, chronic heart disease, chronic kidney disease, where we know that a definitive cure is not possible. What we are looking at is improving the quality of life of patients and their families. Whenever a patient is diagnosed with a serious illness like cancer, their entire world goes upside down. It is a very psychologically traumatic situation for the entire family and the patient. And unfortunately, in the Indian context, we try to protect the patients emotionally, and the family does not want to tell the patient about the diagnosis or the prognosis. So that is where we come to advanced care planning. So advanced care planning is a structured process through which we evaluate about patients' values, goals and preferences. Okay. Like the patients reflect on what their values are, like what gives meaning to their life, what is really important to them in face of a serious life-limiting illness, and about what their understanding about the disease is. And they express their preferences. Like suppose they become very sick or they become very ill and they're not cognitively available for a discussion, like what they want or what they do not want. In such situations, there's a lot of decision making that is involved. Like if you're sick, would you like to go to the hospital? Would you like to go to the ICU? If a ventilator is required, would that be acceptable to you? And what kind of care would you want? Would you want just comfort care, be free of suffering, or would you like aggressive treatments? The treatments for cancer are also very painful. They have their own set of side effects like chemotherapy. Suppose a patient is deteriorating, then we need to bring up such discussions that the chemotherapy is becoming is taking a toll, like physically and maybe financially also. So we need to discuss that should we continue with the aggressive treatment or should we just focus on comfort. So that is what, it's a structured process through which such conversations are initiated. And it is very important, and it is important when the patient is not able to make a decision. So we plan ahead. Like when the patient is cognitively available for a discussion, when they are not in a crisis situation, then we decide, suppose there comes a day where you get really sick, then what would you want?
Understood. So it is structured but also a continuous process, in the sense that, would I be right in assuming that you have your first conversation around advanced care at the time or sometimes soon after the first diagnosis of a life-threatening treatment, but prior to the starting of that treatment itself? Or could it be that it can even happen post the commencement of treatment?
Yes, that's a very important question. So ideally we should start with the diagnosis itself. But unfortunately in our context, where the social stigma around such discussions is there, like people don't want to talk about such discussions in the beginning. Like they want to be talking about optimistic things, like we'll get okay, so we'll get cured, and the family is very protective during that time. So what research from the Western countries tells us that they do it on day 0 itself, like when the diagnosis is broken, they go the extra mile and talk about such things, about the trajectory of the disease. But in India, especially in our context, we do not initiate at the time of diagnosis. Sometimes the patient is diagnosed at a very advanced age. Then of course we do the discussion. But for early stages of the disease, we do not initiate the conversation. We generally initiate advanced care planning at the time of recurrence, when the patient falls sick due to the treatment per se and not due to the disease per se. Then we bring up such discussions because they have already gone through their, they have gone through that bad patch in the treatment trajectory. So then we initiate such conversation. And of course, it's a continuous process. It's not a one-time thing. So you first few months, I would say, we build up rapport with the patient and the family. We provide symptom control. And when we see the opportunity, when the patient is calm and understands the disease, then we initiate such conversations.
All right. Presumably, the survival in most such illnesses or ailments is low. Depending on whatever, if we're talking about cancer or whatever subtype of cancer, or certain other life-threatening conditions as well. So is the onus on the physician, the primary physician, to determine whether or not to initiate an advanced care planning discussion, or in terms of the overall palliative treatment plan, or is it mandatory for a physician to do so?
So that's a very good question again. And so as palliative care physician, so it is one of the principles of palliative care. Like from our side, it is mandatory that we have to do such discussions. But awareness about advanced care planning is not much amongst the general doctors, I would say other specialists and super specialists. So I gladly take the responsibility or the onus that it is our responsibility to initiate such conversations. Having said that, the family awareness is increasing in India as well. Like people are becoming more aware of their rights and what should be done, what should not be done, what are aggressive treatments. So there are many families who take the initiative as well. Rare, but that is also the case.
All right, okay,
Yes.
understood. And when you say, Doc, that there is a statutory or a mandatory requirement on the physician, the primary
palliative care
physician,
team, yes.
or the team who is providing care,
Yes.
usually I would assume at a tertiary center.
At a tertiary center, of course.
Are there sort of statutory laws in place? We sometimes hear of, along with advanced care planning, people speaking of living will.
Yes.
Sometimes we come across a term, do not resuscitate.
Yes.
These seem to be very complex sort of legal mandates. Is that something that, for me as a layperson, for example, I'm not familiar, right? touch wood, don't have anybody suffering from a terminal illness currently that I'm personally aware of. But could you shed some light on what the differences between these are and whether there is a legal or a statutory requirement, or is it more in terms of best medical practice?
Okay, so advanced care planning is a broad term, like it's an umbrella term, and under its purview we have advanced directives, which is also called living will, and DNR is a separate thing, but it comes under the purview of advanced care planning.
All right.
So living will or advanced medical directive is a document. It's a legal document. In January 2023, the Supreme Court of India gave judgment that it is legally valid.
All right.
So what a patient or any person, like I can also do it, you can also do it, anybody above the age of 18 years can write a living will. Like we have a property will, so this is your health related will.
I see. Okay.
So it's a document where you write all your socio-demographic data like name, age, gender, what is the condition that you're suffering from, if at all. You might not be suffering from any condition, but you have made a decision about your death or about the time when you get really sick. Even if you cannot anticipate it in the near future, but still you have certain choices and preferences. Like suppose family of patients who have seen their family or loved ones go through trauma, through a serious illness. So what they can do is they can write this living will in which they have to decide the surrogate decision makers. At least 2 surrogate decision makers have to be jotted down. Like if in case they are not available to make a medical decision on their behalf, the surrogate decision makers can be called upon to take decision for them. So what they want and what they do not want. Like some people can write that I do not want a ICU admission, I do not want a ventilator, I do not want a Ryle's tube, I do not want a Foley's catheter, or don't take me to that particular hospital, or I don't want any IV injections for my pain management. So those kind of decisions you write down 1, 2, 3, 4. Then it's done in the presence of 2 witnesses. And then the document is notarized.
Understood. All right.
So that becomes a legal document in case the patient cannot decide for themselves. Suppose they're comatose, and if they have an AMD, the Advanced Medical Directive, so that can be produced to the doctor who is treating them, like their physician, and based on that, a stand can be taken.
And to build on that, is the doctor then obliged to follow
Yes.
what the living will or the advanced medical directive contains, even if they are at variance in terms of their medical opinion?
Yes, they are obligated by the law to follow it. But one thing lacking in this whole machinery is that in India, we do not have a way to to find out whether it's an authentic document or not. So what the Supreme Court says is 1 copy stays with the patient, 1 with the surrogate decision maker, and 1 to a municipal corporation or any legal body that needs to keep it. It's like a repository of AMDs.
A statutory record somewhere.
So we don't have that machinery. It is present in Goa and Maharashtra. They've started with it.
All right.
So in Delhi per se we don't have. So if somebody brings an AMD to me, there is no way which I can tell whether it's a genuine document or not a genuine document. So it can be used for foul play as well with families.
Especially in cases where, for example, the patient themselves is not able to elucidate what their preference is.
Yes.
All right.
So this is one caveat for this situation. Otherwise, it's a legal document.
Legally binding document.
Yes, it's a binding document.
Right. And you're mentioning some of the challenges. Could you speak of, and I think even in your opening remarks, you mentioned that our cultural context is very different when it comes to palliative care, and discussing, sort of what are the advanced care discussions and practices and awareness that you are ideally not only obliged to but intend to share with the patient and their family, right? Can you speak of what are some of these unique India-specific challenges, that you face, which could, like you said, obviously cultural, but other things that come to mind in terms of what are some of the limitations?
So limitations, one, as you already mentioned, there's collusion, like the patient does not know about their diagnosis and prognosis. So we cannot start the conversation unless they know about it. So even when they know about it, talking about death and deterioration is considered a stigma. Like, why should we talk about such things? Then the family does not let us talk to the patient about it. that the patient will become depressed, they will stop eating, they will give up the hope of living, and they will leave all treatments. So there comes
Which is obviously
one
very
stage-
important in the healing process, also the mind frame.
the mind frame, mindset, exactly. So that is one challenge. And then there, as I mentioned earlier, that there are missing fragmented care. Like the palliative care team is not called upon when it's the right time to make such discussions or to initiate such conversations. So when we come into the picture, the patient is already too sick or already on the ventilator, so there is no point to carry out such conversations. So those are logistic. So there is no structured format for ACP that is standardized across the country.
All right.
So that is another challenge that we have. Then how to differentiate between a genuine AMD or somebody who's making it up, so that social system is not supportive of it many times.
I think the first thing that you mentioned is obviously a very significant and perhaps a unique challenge to our country, our
yes,
cultural context,
socio-cultural
right?
context,
That
yes.
the patient themselves is unaware
Unaware
of
of
what
the
the diagnosis, prognosis,
Yes.
for the treatment is.
Yes.
Are there any tools that you have developed yourself and with your team at Sir Gangaram Hospital in terms of expanding this practice of palliative care to build or to engage with families in particular and sort of, break this taboo?
Yes, so one thing is we have our end of life care policy at Gangaram, where we have adopted the ICMR format for advanced care planning and advanced medical directive. Then there's another center that is called Vidhi Legal Center.
Yes.
We've borrowed their document as well for advanced medical directives. Plus, there are standardized protocols across the world that are followed that we also follow at our center. So there are different techniques, like Spike is one technique where we hold difficult conversations. And in case of collusion, in fact, we are doing a study right now in our department where we are using two modalities of breaking collusion or resolving collusion, wherein the first one we do a mindfulness based relaxation session with the caregiver, and then we use a questionnaire, we use a friends protocol. It's a structured format of conversation, of communication, like how you communicate to the family. First is that you try to understand their reasons of not disclosing the diagnosis or prognosis. Then you acknowledge it, validate their feelings, and gently nudge them about its pros and cons of telling and not telling, about shared decision making. So this is one thing we are doing to help continuity of care and to initiate advanced care planning earlier in the trajectory of the disease.
Right. Just a comment or a thought that comes to mind, which seems antithetical to our, let's say, philosophical or religious context, right? That in a country where we are very familiar, especially for, let's say, 80% of the population, which is the majority Hindu population in the country, you have Yamraj, you speak of Mahakal, people go to Ujjain to,
Yeah.
do darshan
For
and
their last
puja,
days,
and we have a cyclical view of life in terms of dharma, karma, rebirth.
Yeah.
But here you're saying that there is this taboo that आप मृत्यु की बात नहीं करते हो.
Exactly.
Whereas out west you're saying that it is at the time of diagnosis, in which there is just a linear, let's say, cultural,
Yes.
timeline effectively,
Yes.
that they elocute this at the get-go.
Yes.
So I'm finding it hard to understand why there is this,
there is this mismatch.
this mismatch, this schism, this chasm that
Yes.
exists between what is a cultural context but what is actually what you observe
What is happening
in a day-to-day
yes.
setting, right? When it
Yes.
comes to critical illness
Yes.
and palliative intervention.
Yes.
All right, interesting.
Maybe at the time of diagnosis, it's such a big psychological shock or trauma to the family that they would want their patient's life to be saved or prolonged at any cost. Maybe that is the reason where they don't want to jeopardize or try this. Although we have seen that patients do know in their hearts of hearts that they're suffering from a serious life limiting illness, because it's their body that is going through all the treatment and the suffering, the physical, mental suffering. So they do know, patient's family does not talk about it to them, and they don't talk to the family about it. We call this as conspiracy of silence. So, but when you have one-to-one with the patient, many times they are the ones who tell you that I am suffering from this XYZ disease, and I know that I have finite time, but my family does not know that I know about it, and the family does not know that the patient knows about it. So
Understood.
that's it.
Doctor, in terms of strategies, and perhaps it's just an open-ended question, but in terms of strategies to build this conversational trust, would you advise that it is the role of the public health ecosystem? Is it the role of the state? Or is there something which we need to engender at the level of the individuals and families together? Like, how can people maybe have this conversation at home or with the patient themselves? Should there be public messaging around this? We don't hear very commonly on news media or general media on palliative care, on terminal, life, and how to ensure the best quality of life for persons who might find themselves in that scenario.
Yes, that is also a very pertinent question. What I feel is that we should normalize talking about death and dying. Like there's a concept of death cafe, you might have heard.
Not familiar, but please share.
Okay, so it's like it is about normalizing conversations about death and dying, where it was started by a Swiss sociologist. So what he did was he had a dinner at his place, or it's over coffee, and cake, where it's a round table, and where they talk about death, like what are your fears around death, what are your feelings about death, what kind of a legacy would you like to leave behind once you're no more there, and what would be the place of your death, preferred place of death. So it's for like healthy individuals, young individuals, anyone, the society, they can come together and talk about death. So it's about being non-judgmental towards others' feelings, and people are free to express their feelings about death. So I think we did that one in Sir Gangaram Hospital also in one of our events, and it's an upcoming concept in palliative care where we encourage young people to talk about death, because now is the time. If they think about it, then they're open about it. So it helps them decide what are their values and preferences and what gives meaning to their life. So this in a nutshell also tells them how to live well, if they want to know how they want to die well.
All right, okay.
So this is one thing that we are encouraging, and social media, people should read books about death, I feel. Yeah.
It seems very antithetical to somebody's natural interest. And like you said, that they're like, you speak about death, shub shub bolo. That is always the standard refrain, right?
इस time पे death के बारे में बात नहीं करते. Yeah, so those are stigmas associated with death.
And are there existing tools or platforms that are working on advancing knowledge and awareness of palliative care and advanced care planning, so to speak? Are there any such, could be apps or could be social organizations working in the health and medical services space that potentially people can access?
So there are a few websites which talk about advanced care planning, and there's a game, or you can say a Go Wish, a card game also available online. So there they have 30 cards, and on each card they have a simple small note, like I don't want to suffer, I want to be at peace with myself, I don't want to go to the ICU, I want to die at home. So these are like the patient picks up cards and they sort them into 3 categories, like very important, important and least important. So in that way they can categorize and express amongst the family that what they want and what they do not want. Like otherwise conversation could be difficult. If you do it in a play manner, then it will elicit their values and it will give idea to the family that what does the patient really want. So it is the autonomy and the dignity of the patient that we really want to uphold through advanced care planning. So it helps us through that.
Understood. A personal question, Dr. Khurana. When working in palliative care, I would assume that compared to other, consultant physicians who are super specialists at, for example, Gangaram Hospital, you would be seeing a lot of persons, a lot of patients pass also,
Yes.
who are
Yes.
under your care.
Yes.
And there is obviously a certain amount of, or a much more significant amount of trauma potentially that you also have to navigate as a caregiver, as a practicing physician. Can you advise on certain tools and techniques that you have adapted and adopted over the years, which helps you also continue to be focused on what is a very, very emotionally challenging work, and that we can also imbibe in our own individual lives?
So that is a very often asked question, and people generally ask me that how do people working in palliative care cope with the loss, death, dying, grief on a daily basis. So one is becoming, as through the process of becoming a doctor, there's a certain level of emotional blunting, I would say, or we tend to develop a wall, a social barrier that we do not get very personal. We stay professional while talking to families. It does affect us, but I would say reading about death and dying has really helped me. Spirituality has helped me. Like, I've read books, and it's something very close to my heart as well. So I talk about it. We do debriefing sessions after each patients we lose. We discuss amongst each other, like, how did you feel about it? Like, we have nursing staff also, we have residents also, young people who join the department. So this is their first exposure to death and dying. So it can be very traumatic for them. They take their time and they grow up. But I think that's how I have come to terms with it, and it is the satisfaction that we get once there is acceptance amongst the family. Like, death is a natural part of living. That's what completes life. So we all have to die one day. But when the family accepts it, that the patient has to die, but how can we help them around this process of dying, empowering the patient to take decisions for themselves, to be in control. So that's where I get my satisfaction. If my patient passes away in a place they wanted to pass away in, amongst their family members, or whoever they wanted to be present during the last minutes of their life, and if they are pain free, so I feel accomplished through that. Yes.
And perhaps to some extent that's something to celebrate also, if one
Yes,
can
to
achieve that,
celebrate.
right? And
Yes.
bringing in that perspective.
Yes.
So perspective shift along with some tools that you're recommending to familiarize yourself
Yes.
also.
Yes.
And at a younger age, ideally,
At a
so
younger
that you
age, when
don't
you're
have that
healthy
fear.
and fit, you can laugh about it. Yes.
Fair. This has been very informative, Dr. Khurana. Thank you so much for at least giving a top level understanding on what advanced care planning specifically means, because whenever you have complicated words together and which are sort of nebulous, you don't really know specifically what that imports. Is there anything that you would like to share with a general viewer, listener, which is important and pertinent to keep in mind, just within the umbrella of palliative care and advanced care planning particularly?
So I think talking about death is very important for everybody, because it's a very important part of life and it is inevitable, right? So if we talk about it openly with our family, that what our preferences are and what is important to us really, and if we could plan about it, like for any big event in our family, like having a child, getting married, going to college, buying a house, there is so much discussion around it. The pros and cons are discussed. We talk to 100 people before taking a step like that. And for such an important event of our life, death, we try not to talk about it or hush around it.
Fair perspective.
So we should open up and talk about it, so that when the time comes, we all are prepared and we are happy to make this transition. And
Alright.
as in our culture, so it is the physical body that dies and the soul just continues. So we can accept that and be okay with it. I think that will be a great takeaway message.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. And perhaps at Savikal we can have a conversation internally to
Yes.
start off this
We
exercise.
could do a death cafe someday.
Absolutely. This is a very interesting, interesting thought, and very utilitarian also. Thank you, Dr.
Thank
Khurana,
you.
once again for your time and for sharing your knowledge and experience with us, and specifically for shedding light on advanced care planning.
Thank you so much, Raghav.
Thank you everybody
you,
for
Ruchi.
joining us on this episode of Savikal Sanchar. Wish everybody a lovely evening. Thank you.